Hi guys, here we are again with our video series on GIs. Now, if you have seen my previous video with the homework, you may be able to have found something which would be possible to exploit further as a GI. Is it that you are in Africa, in South America, or in Southeast Asia, so in those countries where still handicraft and handmade goods are important, rather than in North America or in Europe, where you have all these big supermarket chains or producers who have cans and industrialized processes, etc., where this is less frequent. Now, if you have found something, okay, so that's good. If you not have found something, keep looking. I will give you some more clues here in the video. But if you have found something, should you now go for a GI quickly to register it and go for Europe for it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The lawyers which may you consult on GIs, they will tell you about the protection of GIs, etc. But that is not the moment you go for a GI. A GI is a lengthy process. I will come to you in a later video. A lengthy process which may take, I don't know, some time, at least a year or so. There is the association to be formed, etc. So imagine you are doing all this with a prospect product. You think it will work on the market, and then once as a GI it comes on the market, and guess what? Nobody buys it. So all this effort which you have done is for nothing. Is that the right idea? No, it is not. So you need, for a GI protection and to get its full potential, what you need is to get traction first on the market. You need to have some success in the local area, on the market, there where the tradition plays out or has played out in the past, or where it all comes from, or where the ingredients are already well known and you don't need to push a cultural barrier in order to get your product known or your ingredient known or the name known or whatever it is. So what is important at the initial part of this adventure is that you get the product more or less done, refine it, get it better, and once you get more or less traction on the market and you get an imitator on the market, and then it may be that a certain moment it will come that you will get a appealing, a traction, a initiative, a worthwhile initiative to get a GI. But there are other labels as well. So there is not only GI and only GI, and I'm a favorite of a GI. A GI is a good thing, as you will know by the end of the video, but there are others. I'm rather old, so in the 1960s or so, 1970s, I'm German myself, so there was made in Germany for industrialized article machinery or so, or tools, machinery tools or so, made in Germany. It was placed on. That was not something really protected, I believe, but still it had some appealing on foreign markets such as China, South America, whatever, but because it got a certain reputation of solid work that will persist over time, it will not shut down or will not corrode, or it will not, there was a good quality product, and that was a reputation behind. So it may be that you get other labels. Made in China, for example, is just the contrary. In the last 20 years or so, where here in Europe, made in China was a cheap product and probably not the best quality, but rather cheap and industrialized and being made quickly and so on. But you have other labels such as I don't know, sustainability labels, or labels that this has not been done with children's slavery work or so, or environment friendly ingredients or environment friendly growth culture have been used to make the product or so. So there are other labels as well that you may well in the beginning exploit in order to give a boost to a kind of quality reputation for your goods. So this is an initial part how it all starts off. Although in that beginning you are still on your own. The GI is something which will come a bit later. Now this is one thing. The other thing is what kind of good do you have? Is it a handicraft good? Is it a raw material? Is it a combined food? Is it a liquid? Is it your liquid? Is it a spirit, or is it a kind of beer, or is it wine? Is it, I don't know, whatever kind it is. It is important to make some reflections in the beginning, because all what you do in the beginning is the fundamental, to put the fundament on what you are building. So if the fundament is not solid, then why would you invest all kind of things into it if it scrambles at a certain moment, like it did in Miami some weeks ago? So raw material like the kiwi from New Zealand, or the, I don't know what kind of peaches in China. There are some peaches and apples in China which are GI protected. These are not my favorite GIs, and you know this already. So these are not my favorite GIs because and I repeat it here, the margin you may get from these kind of products are rather meager, I would say. They are not big, but maybe not surpass 10%. And all of what is GI building, etc., that has a certain cost as well. So you will be only long time when this will get you a return of investment. This is one thing. The second thing is the TAM, the total addressable market. Although with apples you may want to address the whole world, to swap the whole world with apples, which is in theory possible, but you will not be able to do it for, well, simply one reason. The reason is that it is perishable. So if you are somewhere in a rural area in Southeast Asia or in South America and Africa, you will not be able to make a large quantity to serve customers in Europe or in Africa when you're in South America, or vice versa. So it is perishable, and you need to sell it within, a week or so in order to have a quality product delivered to the consumer, who in return is willing to pay a higher price for it. So perishable goods on one hand, and raw material goods on the other, raw material being a raw ingredient. These are kind of backdrops for your future business model. In Europe, you have a lot of spirits. I will get into this in a further video in more detail so that you have a clearer idea on what is happening in Europe, where the GIs, so to say, come from. You have cheeses, beers, wines, spirits, and, well, that's already some, wine, sparkling wine, whiskey, spirits. That's already some 50% of what all GIs are in Europe. And there you have all kind of levels. So you have one which are highly successful, which is the champagne or the Scotch whiskey, and you have others which are moderately successful. They have a certain area or certain type of consumers which are interested in their cheeses, for example, or in their beer, and they are moderately successful, but what they have is a product which is first not perishable, and second, for cheeses it's perishable, but within a limited time frame, and others they are combined. They are not a raw product where the margin would be, the consumer would compare the cost of one apple with regard to the cost of another apple, and would build what they are willing to pay with regard to the cost of an, so to say, normal apple. So that limits the possibility of charging a high margin for your apples, for your peaches. And well, my experience was in China. I had an apple from a geographical origin in my mouth, and it tasted just like, well, for me, I'm not an expert in apple, I must say, but for me it tasted like any other apple from Germany. With its variety naturally, but I would not say that this apple was something where I would say, well, this is something I need now to buy because that is so superior than others. I can't forego it. Now, this is the beginning, and I'm a bit stuck here, and because I want to make the point very clear. The beginning and far beyond what would be a GI application, which would be passed into the future, what is important to have something built on your home market, so to say, where you are growing, in the area where you are growing, to experiment a bit, to get improved, to get feedback from the consumers, what they would like, what they would not like, what could be improved, what is the perishable, what are the hygienic requirements from the state, to get a test on the market on what can be done, what is something which is attractive to the consumers, which are most close to your product, and look a bit beyond. So if it is a product which is culturally linked only to your region, then you will have a cultural barrier with regard to Europe. I know about China example is the Baijiu, which is very heavy rice wine with 50 degrees or so, with where the Chinese, they drink it together with a meal, which is culturally, naturally, or impossible to do it in Europe or in the US. The alcohol is already on a suspicious way in Europe, but 50 degrees, that is nearly impossible in order to swallow together with a meal. So the Chinese, they do it, and they do it very successfully. Baijiu is the most drunken liquor spirit in the world. Well, there are 1.7 million or billion Chinese around the world. But will you get to Europe? Do you have a cultural barrier with regard to your addressable market where you want to sell? So you want to sell in the US and you want to sell in Europe, there where you can get some margin, some return of investment with regard to your original investment. So this video is about the beginning, the very beginning. Next video will be about the angle of the associate, and then we will talk about the association as such. Thank you for tuning in.